Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Hometown TCG. You guys know me, my name is Josh, and you can see I am joined by this awesome cast of characters. Everyone just say hi and yell at once, because let's just get out of the way. It's going to happen.
Hey.
Rabble.
So we wanted to take some time and kind of get a bunch of members of the community together and talk about the recent Chane bans. Everyone knows the community is on fire, so we pulled from the Flesh and Blood community all walks of the Flesh and Blood community, and we want to get a bunch of different perspectives and opinions on this ban. So let's take a second and introduce everyone. On our top left, we have Dennis, or as you guys know him, the man who plays in all the coachings, the guy who plays all the games for us. Shout out Dennis. He is a player who does not want to play Chane, however, was pretty angry at the Chane bans. We got Ethan. You guys know him. He's the first Road to Nationals invite Levia player, and he spent hours of his life teching against Chane. On the top right, we have John. He placed 11th at the main event at the Calling Vegas, and he is a Chane player. He has spent hours of his life on the other side of the coin, playtesting and practicing Chane. On the bottom left, we got me, and on the bottom right, we have Michael. We have a player who came over from the competitive Magic scene, who's kind of seen what happens to games with all these bans, and is now focusing all of his competitive energy on Flesh and Blood. And in the bottom middle, we got some guy. We got Louie from KitchenTableTCG. He's an awesome member of the community, and he is very passionate about what this is doing to kind of the newer players kind of getting into the game and what it's doing to existing members of the community. So everyone, are you guys pretty excited to be here?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Dude,
Cool.
Let me just say this is a great reaction to this, to put a little pocket together to chat about this in live and be able to see people's faces while we're talking and be able to explain, not just Facebook posts. So good work to you, dude.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. And you said reaction, so let's get started right away. And I'm going to start with our resident Chane player, John. And guys, feel free to jump in. You guys understand the format's going to be pretty light with this. John, what was your reaction when you first heard the Chane bans?
I mean, I went through the full 5 stages of grief and loss. I won't lie. I mean, I was like, what? No, they didn't ban Chane, because, of course, I heard somebody exaggerating at the start. But then I went and I read the announcement, and I will say, to LSS's credit, I think they did a really good job of explaining broadly why they chose to ban Chane, or not ban Chane, sorry, letting my viewpoint slip out a little bit here, ban Seeds of Agony, why they chose to ban Duskblade, why they didn't let Living Legend cover it, and I think their goals are really healthy, right? They're trying to keep the meta healthy and balanced. The question is, at least for me, when I read that announcement, and the first impression I got was, why did they ban so much? Why ban 9, maybe 10 if you count Eclipse, cards out of the deck when you maybe could have tried a more incremental approach, ban just yellow seeds and soul reaping, or even yellow and blue seeds, something like that, and then see, is Chane still oppressive? That was kind of my first initial impact. And then Duskblade, I was like, oh man, we knew that card was broken, but I thought they'd at least let us play with it first.
100%. And guys, feel free to jump in with your own opinions and stuff. I mean, that's just him. I know Bishop, you guys had Michael, you guys had a really good conversation in the Discord last night, kind of about these bannings and stuff.
Yeah, it was definitely healthy, the conversation. But it was cool to see that LSS decided to take action kind of when they did. It was kind of weird because they clearly wanted to come in prior to people testing for the national championship, which I really respected that they did that. It was just that they kind of got caught in this weird pocket of wanting to react to the calling, but being so close to the national championship and having people that were really firmly set into that game plan that they wanted to play Chane. So I mean, just so if you guys don't know the numbers, day 1, Chane was 22% of the main event. He was 45% on day 2. Okay. And like, I think it was roughly 70 something % of the guys on, that were in the top 32 that did not make it to the top 8 played Chane, as well as, 67.5% of the top 8.
Okay.
So 5 out of 8.
So yeah, those are pretty staggering. I know you guys talked about it, and then just like you're talking about this national series. I know Ethan also qualified, right? And you spent all this time teching against Chane. Did this like catch you off guard?
I will say I'm very happy that they went after seeds. No offense to the Chane players, but that was the one card when trying to plan for an aggressive game plan against Chane that was just always a hard call. Does this mean I now take Null Rune just because seeds is so oppressive and is a free cast from Banish and just going to stack up inevitably? Especially when I'm running a deck like Levia, my pet deck, and trying to race. The fact that it was just free damage was always the big hindrance, and I'm glad that that's what they went after. Although I do think, just like John, you said, this maybe was really front-loaded, banning all the seeds. Personally, I was a little more in favor of maybe some kind of errata, where after you play one seeds, the next one costs +1, or on and on like that.
Mhm.
Because I don't like to just see a card disappear. I spent a lot of time at my local LGS, like teaching new players, and you know, I know it comes in the blitz decks. I'm pretty sure, and so to just like tell people, hold up a second, this integral card to an archetype is gone, feels a bit bad. But overall, as someone who's racing the deck, I do feel a lot better now planning for Nats, that I just don't have to worry about Null Rune coming from Chane, and maybe just not worry about Chane at all.
Sure. So
Which is
you,
what I get to see.
go ahead,
But
Dennis.
see, I actually kind of feel that hearing that argument actually is a little struggling to me, because I feel that that's part of the reason why, like that's the whole reason why we have a sideboard in this game. Like that's an integral part of building a deck and having to plan for bringing these things. Like that's why there's extra equipment. That's why you have to bring. That's why you have to plan and account for Null Rune. And I feel that by taking away a powerful tool that accounts for a character that allows them to have arcane damage, and making those decks then open up slots where it's like, okay, now I don't have to account for this character having this much arcane, and it allows me to focus more on the game plan of what I'm doing, actually hurts the game more, because you're now able to focus more on a strategy of just, I'm going to go ham and play into what my character wants to do, and not worry as much about what the other character is doing. So I feel that leads to more of a one-sided game where you're taking away less interaction. So
Right. So you're removing the need to interact.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
that's why.
I feel like that's fair. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's why I was more in favor of some kind of errata to seeds, because I just think the fact that it was free was the biggest problem, and there's no way to tackle that other than an errata or just the straight banning. Because when planning against the sideboard, I love it when it feels fair. like okay, I'm gonna put Null Rune because when they spend resources to go for arcane, I now have a plan for it. But when they spend no resources to deal arcane, that was the problem.
Let's not dig too far in, because we're going to talk about the seeds ban specifically. But I really quick want to get Louie's thoughts on the overarching ban, just like his reaction when he saw the bans, because I think we all reacted from a competitive standpoint. But Louie, I think you came from a different perspective. I saw some of your posts online. We had a chance to chat.
Yeah, so like number one, I think everyone saw that something was coming at a competitive level, and so I don't think anybody caught the seeds ban off guard. I don't understand why you put 3 different colors of a card in a game if you're going to just ban the entire card. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like that was my initial reaction on the seeds one. I am not a competitive player. I have not been play testing. I went to Vegas. I probably played 15 games of CC with Chane to practice for, like, that's not my world.
Sure.
For me, this is a confidence shake. Particularly 2 phrases in the article shook my confidence in the game, mainly that they play tested it for sealed, and that they changed the way that seeds worked because they were making it work for sealed. And I, coming in from this game, came in with the understanding that classic constructed is the pinnacle point of this game. And all the arguments I've heard on some of the things have been like, well, we'll get into the Duskblade, but like play test the game for one specific part and don't do it for the rest, or work it around for the rest. And so that was my frustration on the seeds thing. Sure. I do agree that the Chane needed something. I agree with that. I'm not going to try to pretend like I am a pro at that one. The Duskblade one, I think we're going to separate these, but for me, the Duskblade ban was more frustrating because I feel like they said that they didn't play test it.
right in the article, right, guys? They all said it.
They didn't play test it enough, I think is what the phrase was. It was added in late for lore reasons. My initial reaction was, isn't that what supplementary sets are for the lore reasons? Like I was frustrated that that's even a phrase that they were able to put into an article, because and maybe again I did a video on this, but like my thing has been that LSS cares so much about making the game balanced and fair that I never would have dreamed like today would have been a nightmare to me. That's exaggerating, but like I never would have dreamed that this would even be possible. Like I feel like I'm gonna wake up and be like, no, LSS wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? Like that's where I am. So I have a lot of things to say about Duskblade that I'll hold later when we talk about that card specifically.
Well, 100%. You brought up a really interesting point. I kind of want to let you guys go about this, or just kind of go on about this. You talked about this confidence shake, and speaking about the Seeds ban specifically. So let's take Duskblade, right, and let's put that out of our mind right now. Let's just talk about the Seeds ban. And Louie mentioned, and I think a couple of you mentioned too, this kind of confidence shake. Did anybody else feel? Because I know I personally, when I saw this ban, I was like, ooh, that doesn't seem like the answer. That doesn't seem just a hard ban hammer. You guys, was anyone else confidence shaken over this?
Yeah, that's the first thing I said when I saw this, is that this is the first time that I've been following Flesh and Blood, even though I've only been playing for about 9 months. I've been following it ever since I saw Rudy first kind of do some content on it, and I've been following the game and whatnot, but this is the first thing I've seen LSS do that really kind of made me like raise an eyebrow, and I hate that feeling because I've been the hardcore LSS fanboy for a long time, and I know that part of my problem is too, and Louie, you said this in your video too, that part of my problem is I've put LSS up on a pedestal, and maybe that's part of my fault, but it was definitely a shake.
Okay.
This is a good point to say it before the whole comment section says it, because my comment section was full of this and I must have missed it. I said it like 5 times in my video, but they must have missed it. Like LSS apologized, and that's a huge
100%
massive step
great move
forward.
Yeah,
but
big.
This is an important conversation, because it's one thing to apologize and it's another thing to apologize and never do it again. And so like LSS, we accept the apology. I do anyway. Like I accept the apology. That's great. But like you need to hear our frustration from it so that you also feel the weight of your apology.
100%. And don't talk to Rooks, because John might not accept their apology. I know you were going to say something. What did this do for your confidence, John?
So there's kind of 2 big points here. The first is I gotta agree with what was previously said. The fact that they apologized and how they handled the rollout of this ban, I think they should get massive kudos. They handled the kind of PR and the upper level description of this ban better than any company that I've played a TCG of before. And they're going to do this again. Like, as much as we hope that they're going to play test perfectly and nothing's ever going to slip through the cracks, there's going to be some interaction they miss. There's going to be some adoption of something that causes a need for a meta correction through some kind of ban or restriction in the future. Hopefully it's 10 years from now, but it's going to happen again at some point.
Sure.
So the question is, how do they do it? And the way the nitty gritty specifics of how they did it is what shook my confidence personally. So the first thing is, we didn't know when bans could happen, right? Like, we don't have a banned or restricted date. We don't have we're going to consider maybe banning some cards before nationals, right? I've been wholly on the test limited train to prep for nationals because I had over 400 games played of Chane, and I knew the new heroes weren't going to be so good that it was going to knock me off my deck entirely. So now I'm scrambling in the last second because I didn't even think I needed to have a backup deck, because they'd never even hinted that that was going to happen.
Right.
I think they've kind of fixed that. Yeah. Right, exactly. They said we're going to revisit bans in December 14th or whenever they said it was going to be. So that's a great step.
That's after nationals, right?
Yes.
After nationals.
Yes, that's after
nationals. So that means they won't ban anything else. They won't say, oops, we want unhallowed rights too.
Right.
Not going to happen. I took it that they were promising that to me, at least.
Well, they like you said, they handled this well, and you said they handled it better than any other TCG you played. And Michael, this is kind of your area, having played another TCG in a very a very relevant TCG at a very highly
Right.
competitive level. Is this slightly reminiscent? Does this feel like the MTG community? Have you had this happen before?
Yeah, we've definitely had bans, and I feel like, and I made a comment last night in one of the conversations. I actually think it was with Rooks, that there's always kind of this when it's definitely something that's heavily played. And I actually noted a couple of like marquee decks and cards that were banned in MTG throughout, polarizing seasons. There's always kind of that immediate, just like, God, I don't want to play it anymore. Much like Rooks was saying, you go through like the 5 stages of grief, like especially if you're one of those players, and especially to Rooks's credit, at his level, it definitely stinks. But there's always some sort of archetype to move into out of that, whether it's in this case a different hero or trying to brainstorm and look at how to make it more viable. In Chane's case, it's kind of a daunting task. I actually had a buddy that's sitting in the room today, and he's like, just looking at the few cards that are actually blood debt, and like the entire archetypically his entire game plan just is completely changed if you're playing the deck at all.
Can I make a comment on
Go
that?
ahead.
Because I had a conversation today with somebody, and they brought up a great point that Flesh and Blood is so hero-centric and specific with the mechanics. Whereas Magic the Gathering, if a card's banned, you might be able to adjust it and it's wider spread or whatever. But in Flesh and Blood, that hero doesn't have a card pool that's massive enough to recover from a massive ban like this. You don't have the ability to add in other things.
Sure.
And that's something that really, for me, like shook the confidence. Again, like I don't want to get too heavy into it, but like shook the confidence at the structure of how things are played or organized or designed, if we're not going to be confident that they are going to be playtesting at a level that's acceptable.
And this was going to be my follow-up point, because I was like, oh yeah, ban's good. No. The problem is when you have a rarity structure with legendaries and fables and a card pool that doesn't move. They banned one card. I'll just shift my deck around and I'll play Shadow Puppetry and Shadow of Ursur and Carrion Husk and Grasp the Arknight in another deck. Like, some of these cards can go into one other deck.
Right.
Some of these cards, like Grasp, can go in 2 other decks, maybe. But for the most part, especially if that deck isn't your style, like I'm not a big Brute player, they just kind of blanked a whole bunch of the cards in my collection that I spent big money on because of the extreme rarities that they have. And I think they have to be really careful about over banning and making a whole hero not viable before people know that that's going to happen, right? If Living Legend retires, I can plan for that. I got a runway to get onto a new deck. But if it's emergency banned right before a big tournament when they didn't let us know, and they take out 9 key cards where there's not really replacements, maybe Toma Torment, I don't know, that leaves you in a really hard place and really shakes your confidence.
Yeah, and that
I agree with that.
And that goes to new players too, because one of the things almost every single Flesh and Blood content creator and every single Flesh and Blood player has said is, hey, go buy the legendaries, because you can use the legendaries all the time, and every hero uses the legendaries.
Yeah.
Right.
And like that's, again, like we were all so over committed that LSS was not going to make the mistake that they made in this announcement.
I mean, we personally internally have given advice to patrons, to members of the Discord and stuff like that. They want to get into this competitive scene, and we've told them, hey, we want to play Katsu, and we've advised them, if you want to play at the competitive level, you have to own Mask Momentum. I'm imagining a scenario or something like that where something comes out where, maybe Katsu is no longer viable, and these players that trusted us, for our opinion and spent their money based on our guidance, they're now kind of in the dumpster. But you guys said something interesting, and I want to just, before we move on here, I do want to get Ethan's perspective on this, because you guys talked about, there might not be a suitable replacement of this card pool. There might not be something, maybe the deck falls off. I want to get the perspective, how, kind of what's the situation with someone who plays, Ethan plays Levian, plays that at a very high level, but that means he's kind of been working with what most of the community considers a substandard card pool. The community is not high on that hero, yet he's been able to play that hero to a good amount of success. Ethan, do you think that these Chane players, are they going to be able to find a suitable replacement? The deck's still going to be viable? Or from someone who's dug to the bottom of the barrel, do you think this is it?
First of all, I just want to welcome all Chane players who want to put their carrying husk to good use to hop aboard the Leviathan train. So yes,
miss
please,
a beat
please come
there.
join us.
There you go.
I do think, look, honestly, John's point about the card pool being super limited is a bit of a worry, and it's one of the worries that I've been dealing with a ton trying to build Leviathan decks. She's just got a card pool where half it doesn't work, and now Chane's facing that same problem, which is kind of interesting. Now, both Shadow Heroes.
Misery loves what?
Misery loves something. There we go. So it is something that I think can be solved in the way we've already seen, like Crucible come out and give supplemental support to older heroes. Where I'm hopeful that when this next supplemental set does come out, that they do know that Chane's a card down compared to everyone else at this point, and maybe give him something else that's not just Tome of Torment or Howl from Beyond that is playable from Banished like that, because it is. John said this as well. With the Seeds ban, it's almost like they're banning Eclipse too, right? But it's a little bit more than that as well, because so many of his cards are dependent on playing the non-attacks to be playable. And now there's the card pool to play things from Banished that are non-attacks has just been sliced in half. It hurts a lot more than just the fact that it was free arcane damage. It hurts a lot of the way that you're going to have to build the deck. So I'm hopeful that someone can still crack it. It's not going to be me. I don't have any interest in playing Chane. But I will say something else here that very happy with is that as someone who's always trying to plan for playing against Chane, I was worried that maybe Living Legend was the only thing the rest of us had to hope for that could really shut him down. Because even if the meta did change, there's always the fact that there's still going to be Chane players, and that matchup's still going to feel terrible for every other deck that's just not poised to beat Chane or have a game plan for Chane. Whether Frost comes in and makes a Chane player scared, they're still going to be there and still going to make a lot of their decks feel bad. So I'm still happy that they did something. And my confidence has just been instilled, honestly, that they're going to jump in and notice that Living Legend may not be the only answer to a lot of these feel bad game patterns.
Sure, I can see John shedding a tear. And before we go too far off the end, Louie did have a chance here to talk about. And I want to give him the floor, but I'll mention moving on to the Duskblade. I want Duskblade ban. And I want to give him the floor, but he mentioned a unique scenario that Dennis and I actually encountered. When the ban was announced, we were at an LGS with a brand new player that had in their pre-release pulled a Duskblade. And Louie, I know I want to give you the floor here to kind of talk about that. So moving on to the Duskblade ban, you think this is a bigger problem than the Seeds of Agony ban. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Seeds of Agony has been it's a common. So like financially or collectability, it's like, okay, you lost a card. Like you're not like, what we said about the legendaries, like you're not telling people to buy them, to play a deck, you need it, whatever. It's a common. It doesn't really matter. It matters for the energy and the time. And we already had that conversation. For me, I like to think of Flesh and Blood as a game that's going to go wide and not just competitive. And I have put a lot of my energy and attention to that. You guys have all put a lot of your energy and attention to the competitive scene. For me, it's like I want to have a place where my friends can play the game and whatever. And part of a non-competitive TCG, part of a TCG is the trading card game or collectible card game.
100%.
And if you remove the collectible part of that, then it feels bad for those people. And so I think if you a new player, and on my video I showed that I had traded for a card, and I don't care. Like my cold foil collection is much bigger than my Duskblade. It doesn't matter. Like I didn't not eat tonight because I got a Duskblade. Like I'll be fine.
Are you done flexing? Are you done?
I pulled a cold foil Courage of Bladehold in my first box of Crucible or Crucible First Edition, and I instantly said I'm going to play Warrior. And for the next 5 months, I played not the competitive Warrior. I played Kasai at Blitz, and for the next 5 months I looked at that cold foil and I loved the game and it was a lot of fun, and that I had that moment, and I hate that somebody is gonna pull a card, and I know it's usable in Blitz, that's what everyone's gonna say in the comment section, it's usable in Blitz, but I hate that someone's going to pull that card, and the financial value is going to be infinitely lower than it could have been, but B, that more importantly, that they won't be able to utilize that card in the main format of Flesh and Blood. And to the people who are going to say Blitz, because I've heard it on Facebook 18 times today, we have been saying as a community that this game is meant to be played as Classic Constructed. You can't just now go ahead and say, no, the card can be played in Blitz. That's not the goal. Can I have the floor for 5 more seconds? Do you guys want to respond
No,
to that?
go for it.
So the I think this would have been with the Dustblade thing, so that's my main point. But with the Dustblade thing, it's taken so much energy from the community, and like it's Monday after pre-release of a new set, and I'm pissed. Yeah. That's the loudest swear word you're going to hear me say ever on a channel. I am pissed that on Monday and Tuesday after pre-release we are negative in our community and not freaking hyped up for the new set. And so like the seeds ban, I think we all saw it coming. I think we all saw something like that coming. Maybe not all of us, but like I think like that we knew something had to be done. The Dustblade one, I almost wish that they would have banned Dustblade when they announced the card and said, look, this card's going to be banned from. I wish they would have just done it from both, and
I'd like to
replace the card with something else. Then we have the calling and everyone's having fun and we don't really think about it anymore. No one's been thinking about the card. Nobody's been, whatever. And then now we have the seeds ban. That's the competitive side of things. And we're talking about the seeds ban, and no one's really worried about Dustblade because nobody got excited about it. And when you pulled it at your pre-release, the LGS owner said, hey, if you give it to me, LSS has sent me a different card to give to you, and it's done.
That right there would have been huge. And I wonder if there'll be some program for that. I would, that is huge. What you just said, that last sentence, I think could be gigantic.
So their answer, I can tell you their answer right now is going to be that every card's usable and it could be unbanned at some point in the future.
And they're going to live on the whole, like you can play it in Blitz. I actually want to piggyback off that. My biggest thought on the Dustblade situation was after like just thinking it was funny, like that they even printed the card, and then hearing their statement. I want to know, because it was such a big mistake. Like I love their transparency in the like apology, and hoping that they don't have to make this type of apology again. They're going to have to apologize for things, but hopefully not like this. But I want to know when in either, because it didn't happen obviously in the developmental process that they realized this was a problem. It clearly happened after the calling, right? Like at some point it happened after the calling, and I'm certain that they had limited playtesting when they made the decision. So I would like to know if LSS sees this and someone can give us an answer. When did they make the decision that Dustblade was too much of a problem for Classic Constructed? Just piggybacking off is Louie off of your point, just like it, like we had a guy just pulled a cold foil Dustblade and was fired up on Saturday night. Like, and I mean, and he's yearning to be it's probably his first TCG that he's trying to play competitively. He's yearning to play. I mean, he was trading that night for like over trading for like Briar cards just to play it. And it just feels really bad. And, and I'm sitting there just with this pit in my stomach. Like I'm not going to be the one to tell him. I'm not that big a guy that I could tell him that, sorry, man, you're not going to be playing for very long.
Right. And go ahead, Louie.
Imagine the people who spent $175 from Channel Fireball, which we shouldn't have been charging that much for first edition yet anyway. But imagine the people who are spending $175 on their first box of Flesh and Blood. They get the box in the mail and they open it up and they're so excited, and they get their cold foil and they look at it like, oh my gosh, I got a majestic cold foil. That's got to be good. It's got the majestic, and that kind of sounds like mythic, and mythic is Magic's good thing. I got a majestic one, and they look it up and they go, I'm going to play Runeblade, and then they're not allowed to play it in the main format of the game.
Yeah, and this happened. And Dennis, I want to get your thoughts because we saw that live, right? So exactly what you're describing, Louie. We saw a player that had just gotten into the game. He got into the pre-release, and the first thing he did, he recognized, I think it was Dennis from doing the videos and stuff. So he was asking him questions. He came up, he was asking me a ton of questions. And then before the event started, he was like, I pulled a cold foil Duskblade at the pre-release. I get to play Rune. And we were like, that is an insane pull. That's all. We were celebrating the kid. We got into the event. 3/4 of the way through the event, Dennis yelled across the shop and let me know. And we saw that. I mean, Dennis, you can describe it yourself. We were there when a player felt that feeling.
Yeah, well, and actually, it was even worse because of the fact that when we got there last night, we were originally going to do Classic Constructed, and we, at last minute, decided to do Arcane Rising Sealed. And this kid, again, he had never played before, and even though he couldn't play the card, he drafted Viserai. He forced Viserai because he was so stoked about doing Runeblade and stuff, and he wanted to pull the cards and play the cards and stuff like that. And I mean, like you could just see the look of deflation on this guy's face when he found out that he wasn't going to be able to use the Duskblade. And I mean, it really did look like a gut punch type of a thing. And I mean, and that's just not the kind of that's not the kind of feeling you want when you're trying to build a community and when you're trying to build a new game and build this sense of confidence in your game and play style. And it is one of those things where it's like I respect the hell out of LSS, and I respect their ability to come in and apologize. But I guess that the point that I'm at right now is that they had a couple blunders early on where I mean we obviously had the Drone of Brutality ban where people kind of looked at him and said, okay, you went into this saying you weren't going to ban cards, but we understand, we're going to give this a pass. Now we're at the Seeds ban, and now we're at a Duskblade ban before the sets even come out. And they've also had a couple of things where they've had to come and say, hey, mea culpa, my bad, type of a thing. And I'm almost worried that they're getting to a point to where they feel that if they just say, hey, look, guys, we're really sorry we made a mistake, that it's going to be okay. And I think that's why it's so important that the community needs to step up and be like, look, we are willing to work with you. We're really good that you're willing to acknowledge your mistakes and you're willing to own up to your mistakes. But just because you come out and say you're sorry doesn't mean that your mistakes are okay. You need to do better.
To me, it'd be really nice to have some data. At what point does a deck go from this deck is the best deck to this deck is too good to this deck is getting an emergency ban, right? Because those are like three different levels of problem. And Duskblade, they had no tournament data on. They can't have, right? And it isn't even that good in sealed.
Admittedly, very little playtest data as well, right?
Right.
Admittedly.
And I say this even though I unfortunately agree with Duskblade ban. The two games I tested with it was the most busted card in Flesh and Blood by a huge margin. If Seeds had been banned and Chane could play Duskblade, Chane would still be a deck, like a good deck, because it has a good game plan against control with Duskblade. So the fact that one card can turn a deck's matchup from tough to no problem, it's fine, you banned my most important card, says that the card's probably too good. But I'm more worried about what happens in the future. How are we going to know that it's safe to invest in a legendary cold foil for our favorite hero? What kind of metrics should we be watching for to be, we're going to get banned?
Yeah. And I think what, the comment sections are going to say about this, and this is always I think, like the comment section is going to say, yeah, they needed to ban this because Nationals was going to come up, so they couldn't get the data, because if this was a card, then exactly what you said at the beginning of this video was going to be not able to happen. You wouldn't be able to play test. They would have to ban it before Nationals, and that's it. And this is why you can't say that you didn't play test the card. This is why you have to play test the card. If you're going to be a competitive TCG, if you're going to be focused on being a competitive TCG, you have to play test the card. And I didn't want to get here, but I'm a little fired up. So like the other issue that I see from a collector, since we started talking about investing, from the investors and the collectors for the last 5 months, one of the things that I've heard, and I don't fully buy into this, but one of the things I've heard for the last 5 months is the last 4 sets from Monarch all the way to WTR have been created over a 7-year window, and they had plenty of time to work out all the kinks and whatever. The question was, can LSS create a set in under a year or however much time it takes? Can they create a set that is worth investing and worth collecting and worth playing and like not a good look right now? Like I have been saying, yes, they can. Yes, 100%. I'm all in. Yes. The game's amazing. Yes. This is why my title of my video was I had to eat crow. And this is anyway. So like,
need to watch your videos more.
Wow. So I think you hit the nail on the head there too, especially because we've talked on this channel, and John and I haven't said much, I kind of want to give, but I do want to point out that we have talked about this healthy spectrum that exists in good TCGs, this player collector spectrum. No person, even myself, even John, who avidly play the game, we're not entirely on the player level. We like our stuff to be worth money. We like to open cool cold foils to collect, right? We like to trade for cooler cards. We're somewhere on that spectrum. Very few people are all the way at one end or another. So when you disrupt that ecosystem, it could create a really, really tough imbalance to come back from. So I think we're at a pivotal point here. And I've already kept you guys here. I didn't even realize I've kept you guys here for 35 minutes already. So is everybody okay to keep going?
Yeah, I'm good.
I could talk about this till 4 a.m.
This is important stuff.
I 100.
It's better that I talk about it here than on Facebook.
I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface too. There's so many other things to talk about.
The last two topics we're wanting to look at are so huge. I feel like we're just like warming up right now.
Yeah.
So okay, go ahead, pick your favorite topic then, Michael. Kick us off. Your favorite of the last two topics. Just kick us off.
Well, like the elephant in the room is, why did they ban all 9 seeds? Like I remember, like me and Rooks had and when I say healthy, a very healthy conversation based on emotion, like competitive data, and then just like someone's right in this conversation. But it's I like my feelings on the seeds, if we're going right into it, is all 3 was super, super, super harsh. Like Rooks actually brought up a great point to me and in the video here. If they would have just kind of done yellow and maybe soul reaping, then I think it still keeps Chane doing what he wants to do, which is playing an unfair game. Like I remember hearing Dennis's point about seeds earlier, which is like, well, you have sideboard options, so you don't just get to show up and just play one game. But that's kind of what Chane does, right? Like if you hear like the guys that play him competitively, it's like you have this set of 60 cards you play forward, and then when you play against control, you just kind of throw everything in and then siege your way through. And I love his name that is Chane, because like you have just one huge chain going on the whole time. So I imagine that the decision, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, I want to hear what Rooks has to say here, but I imagine that the decision to ban all 9 seeds was made pretty hastily with a limited amount of play testing just off of the data from the calling.
Right.
They didn't employ anybody from the community, which is something I want to talk about later on. But I think that their whole standpoint was, we want to be safe rather than sorry. And if we're going to ban after saying we don't want to ban cards and already having a snafu with drone and knowing they had a mess up with Duskblade, they had to have a deft hand when they came into this, because they didn't want to do it now and say, we want people to be able to prepare efficiently for the national championships. And then halfway through say, no, yellow and soul reaping wasn't enough. Maybe we had to take blue out as well, or just red, so there's not as many seeds and you still have pitch efficiency and chain. I think that would have been a worse look for them than doing all 9. But as a player, like when I went to the calling, I didn't get to play them, unfortunately. I got to play a bunch of Road to Nationals winners that kind of countered what I was doing. But I was really wanting to play against Chane and never got to. And I really enjoyed playing into that matchup and just playing against the player, because when you play a competitive TCG and you're a competitive player, the best players, as a general rule, unless you're a rogue deck player, they like to play the best deck. And Chane was unequivocally the best deck in the format at the time, which is why most everybody here, except for Ethan, was playing Chane.
Well, and then you talked about banning, maybe just the yellow seeds, and I think that's a better option. Ethan actually mentioned something that I'm kind of against personally. I kind of want to he touched on it. I didn't get any of your guys' thoughts. He talked about this idea of an errata, right? Where you play 1 seeds and the next one costs an additional 1. And to me, John and I have been very open. We started in the Dragon Ball Z card game, and if anybody played the original Dragon Ball Z card game, you needed a printout PDF this thick to follow along with the million erratas. So, Ethan, do you really think that the errata is the way to go? And then after he's done, guys, feel free to jump in and touch on that.
I'm coming from a background of playing X-Wing, which the way that game worked, it had printed costs on all the cards that got changed regularly. They messed up all the time.
They printed a whole new game.
Yep.
They were like,
They eventually had to do that,
yeah.
truly. Yep, because the numbers were just so wrong. But that's just what I got used to, this idea that, you just kind of get to ignore what's on the card. Yeah, I just think that there was probably a different route to go than ban all 9. And the answer might have been like what John's saying, ban only one of the color sets. But as me not being a Chane player, I don't know If that really would have been enough, I'm super happy to see them all go. But then,
Ruthless, man.
it didn't have to be an errata.
Ruthless.
Didn't have to be an errata. I'm just saying that there might have been another way than ban all 9.
Erratas are really bad for new players.
I think so
agree.
too.
That was
That's
just going to be the
yeah.
point I was going to make.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially the cards in the Blitz deck. And I mean, that's do we need to get into that? I mean, like the cards in the Blitz deck and it got banned. How does that happen? But like, yeah, I mean, it's just bad for new players.
It's
that would be my big concern too, is the fact that that's the last thing you need is for them to start printing another set of unlimited where there's a whole set of seeds that cost 1, and then you have old school players that are selling stuff on TCG that they have seeds that cost 0 and confusing people that are trying to get into the game and build new decks, and then you have weird people doing collectible things with, well, these seeds are more expensive because they're the 0 pitch cards.
$400 seeds of agony.
Yeah, like it's the errata. I don't think I can get behind her a game like this, especially with a game that's still in its infancy and still growing. I agree that if something had to happen, it had to be a ban, but the banning the 9 was too much. Like I understand it's the same card, but the way that Flesh and Blood is set up, they are all separate cards. That's why you can have 3 of each in a deck. So they have room to wiggle with doing bans. They don't have to do a big sweeping ban.
Yep, and this is not an attack. Before I let you go, Michael, this is not an attack on Ethan. This is a point. This is just to prove that there are like other routes that could have been considered for this, right? And he brought up the errata, and I think his errata was just as much of a snap decision as, like you said, banning all 9 seeds. So again, not an attack on someone's idea, just the concept that all of these ideas are different. They all have pros and cons, right? So go ahead, Michael. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, and admittedly, he asked for it, right? Saying, "I'm happy they're all gone."
That's true.
So
he has been very bonking Rooks on the head. Yeah.
Before I let Rooks go, because I comprehensively, I want to hear what Rooks has to say, definitely. But I like that LSS said that we considered these other options, like dropping the intellect, dropping his health a little bit. I'm not sure, and the reason I say that is, coming from a very competitive standpoint, like when I would go to GPs in Magic, we would have like two week like think tanks where all we did outside of work was just play test matchups. We're looking at percentages. Piloting mattered so much. We would actually have 2 people on one side, 2 people on the other side, thinking through out loud how hands would work, and then swapping decks, because it's almost better to play against the deck you're playing as like majority wise than playing that deck itself. So I'd be super interested to see like what type of data they have on limiting those other things, like the intellect specifically, and maybe some of the like maybe even amending the cost, and then see like what the logistics looks like trying to print out, if they make seeds cost 1, all of them, like how the heck are they going to get that many seeds in the time that we would need for them to be able to be played at nationals? And if it was maybe just the logistics of that option that kind of deferred it, like made it go away. Go ahead, Rooks. I want to hear your stuff, man.
I think it's really easy to identify problems, and it's really hard to find narrow solutions that don't oversolve for your problem. I think every competitive player in the community knew Chane was the best deck, and most people agreed that he was too good, especially after the calling. So the question is then, what does your process look like to fix that problem? And this is where my main concern is for the future. The LSS article was great about explaining why they did it, but not why they chose the solution they chose. They just said, Seeds is a good card, so we banned it.
Sure.
And to me, because of the way Chane works, Runeblades all need to do arcane damage or play non-attack actions or both to have their cards work. And the way Chane works specifically is many of their cards need to be played out of the Banish Zone to get adequate value. And the only non-attack action that does arcane damage is Seeds of Agony.
Mm-hmm.
The only non-attack action that has Go Again and cost 0 is Seeds of Agony. The only card in the deck that served this purpose was Seeds of Agony. So by banning all 9, you can't really adapt. You have to totally change the deck. And when you're totally changing the deck, why don't you just play Viscerai with the new boots? Why don't you just play Briar from the new set and do degenerate long chains of huge damage where every time you're hitting like Bravo, like on your God hands, right? Like
Sleeper, by the way.
Chane is about those small incremental damage pieces. And if you're shutting that down, you need to give him a replacement or not go all out. I would have loved to see the way I would have handled it. And I have not play tested enough to say that this is definitely the answer. But what I would have done is I would have banned Yellow Seeds. I would have banned Soul Reaping. I would have said, we are coming back to this in December after Nationals. Once we have more data about how this ban affected things, we will probably ban more seeds. But in our supplemental set, we have a seeds replacement coming. It's going to cost 1. It's like we errated it. We had a incremental step to stop the bleeding. And then we're going to do a bigger step to more holistically solve the problem, like Living Legend was set up to do, right? If the hero gets too good, he's going to get banned, and then we're going to come out with a replacement was kind of the promise, right? And then do it that way. But I feel like they overbanned here because of both the control matchup and the aggro matchup. The aggro matchup, I think Chane will still be good. And I think Howl into Unhallowed Rites will still have play against control decks. But you won't be able to set up the bottom of your deck to always play Eclipse like you could in the old meta. You won't be able to okay, I'm playing 6 copies of Unhallowed Rites, so even if they snag me, even if they Arclight Sentinel me and I don't have a Time Snap potion, I can still do this again. That's long gone. You got to just pray to the Flesh and Blood gods that you get either Command and Conquer to clear their snag or multiple plunder runs in a row to have a really big go wide turn. And I think competitive players aren't interested, by and large, in playing to the Flesh and Blood gods to get a lucky turn. They want consistency. That's what drew people to Chane, and that core feature of his playstyle is now gone.
Hey, can I piggyback on the Living Legend?
Go ahead.
Azalea players say, well, I never got to play the game.
You knew that going in. You knew you were the underdog, and you like being the underdog. That's my counter to that.
So you mentioned in that, and I think those are. I think that's the way to go. I would say I agree with you. Now, I'm biased. We know each other, so I'm tempted to agree with you. But I think that's the way to go. And I want to kind of wrap up here, but I want to give everyone a chance to talk about their thoughts. Not only, if you have any closing thoughts on the ban as well, and obviously respond to each other as well, closing thoughts on the ban as well. But maybe, does this do anything for your confidence in Flesh and Blood as a whole? Does this do anything in your confidence with, kind of the community, how the game's going to be handled? And I do want to start with, I think Michael is our newest player. Again, he took his talents from these other highly competitive games and highly competitive environments and shifted over here. Does this affect your confidence at all in the game? Do you have any closing thoughts on these bans, anything like that?
It doesn't really shake my confidence in the game. I think that this is really just Flesh and Blood's first look at like the company using a hammer on the meta. Like I said, WotC has done this so many times with MTG and in far more unreasonable strokes. I made a comment last night. There was a deck called Splinter Twin.
Yep.
And the deck was just gone. Like, you ban Splinter Twin and you can't play Splinter Twin anymore. And I completely yield to the idea that your pool is a lot smaller, not just in the game, but right now with it being in its infancy. I would piggyback on what Rook said about the Living Legend. I think that the update they had to Living Legend with the going from the 100 to the 1,000 or whatever it was, 10,000, they should have also scaled top 8s at major events. And I think that would have fixed a lot of the problem. I really think that the Nationals coming up may have been the last time we saw Chane in this iteration. They could have completely kept seeds, because they said that when they Living Legend out a champion, they're going to print one that's the same class that's a lot like that champion. The one thing they said in their article is that they talked about amending his hero ability. And if they print a new champion due to Living Legend, they could do exactly that. And then we could just talk about the dark days of the villain who is Chane, which they admit the villain of Monarch is Chane. So there was that option, and I loved what Rook said as far as, we're going to come back to this. We're going to print a supplemental set and then probably get rid of more Chanes. But we don't want to just completely neuter what Chane is as a hero, because now, I mean, and just talking on the investor side, which Louie knows a lot about, like, now your product in Monarch is, if it wasn't struggling enough with tails coming up, it's going to be struggling. I mean, who buys first edition right now at the price it's set at? That's remarkable.
And
Shout out to George, Monarch to 1K.
And with Tails coming in, you said Monarch, but even now Tails, you have a cold foil that essentially, who knows what the value is going to do. Drone of Brutality went up to $1 million. I don't care as much about the invest. I mean, I love talking about the investment side, but the band doesn't matter to me as much as I'm talking about Duskblade now. For the investor side, it's for the new player side, and for the investor side. Can I talk now? Is it my turn? Can I just go?
100%. I was going to let you close this out, but dude, hit it.
For the investor side of things, it's this statement. Unfortunately, Duskblade was not subject to the classic constructed testing process it should have been, particularly being a weapon that starts in play and influence every turn of the game. And like, I was baffled when I read that sentence. I literally was like, everything that I believed about this company was just in one sentence undone in terms of like my confidence. And like, the only thing that you can say here is that we apologize. We feel embarrassed. We're taking learnings from it to better improve our development process. That's great. I hope that's true. Let's move forward and let's do that. That being said, like, I thought we were there already. That's what I was sold with James White. I was sold that James White is there and that he has the ability to do it. I was told that he's the greatest game designer of all time. There's a million other things behind the scenes in terms of logistics and distribution that is already shaking the concerns of the investor market right now. And everyone says, yeah, but the game's really good, and the game is the best design game of all time, and that's what everyone has pointed to. So as an investor, as a collector, my confidence is certainly shaken. Now, I'm not going around and selling my cold foils. I'm not out of it. I have said, you will bury me with my cold foils. I love this game.
But also like this game.
I think a lot of other people are going to be very heavily shaken, and you're going to see a huge, you're not going to see this is Tuesday after pre-release. We should not be talking about this. We should be hyped as a collector investor. We should be hyped up about the next set and how it's going to change the market and bring more people into the game, not fearing that people are going to not come into the game because they're seeing a ban. Like, that's what's frustrating to me. This can't happen again.
No, you're right. There should be wind in the sails right now. This should be the wind in the sails moment. This should be like the charge forward. I should feel bad about the 2 box openings that I'm going to post because investors like you are going to be mad that the sealed product is no longer there. But I don't. Yeah.
Instead, people are canceling their orders at Channel Fireball today. I've had
100%.
Can I add one more thing to my final
real quick, and then I want to go on to Dennis.
Sure. One thing that WotC did with Magic that really helped them out, kind of in their mid kind of prime years, is they added people who were performing really well at high levels into their testing team. So they'd sign contracts. They're like, hey, we need you to test this stuff with us with your perspective. It would be possible to bring in like qualified, high performing members of the community to be on testing teams for this with some sort of compensation. Maybe it's just like random promos or like cold foils or whatever. Sure. But that would, and it would go a long way to ensure confidence in the community, especially if they doubled it with high performing players and content producers in some way. That would just be outstanding and a great way to fix this for the future.
Dude, that is why you're here, because I think you just hit that out of the park. I think that would be incredible. And they've admittedly stole things from Magic the Gathering and from or not stole things, but it borrowed themes or theories and ideas from. I think that would be that is an idea that I think is just that's here. So sure. Just closing off that, I want to give Dennis a chance to any final thoughts or, any kind of concerns that you have. Did this shake your confidence? Do you have any final thoughts on the bans?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to say that, like, as I said earlier, this definitely shook my confidence a little bit. I mean, my very first response to seeing this is kind of like how I touched on earlier, that this is exactly why I stopped playing Magic. Like this is the kind of stuff that we were starting to see, and I'm going to fully admit that I may have been too head in to LSS. So I'm going to end this by saying I am still fully in on LSS. I'm still fully in on Flesh and Blood. I still fully believe that James White knows exactly what he's doing, and that he's one of the best game designers that is in the market today, and he knows I'm annoyed and I'm frustrated about the fact that they put out a statement saying that they did not fully test this before they put this out. But I'm willing to say that, you know what, mistakes happen, things slip through the cracks, and this is a game that's in its infancy, and you can be the best game developer in the world, and things are still going to happen, and mistakes are still going to happen. But all right, all these other things aside, J-Dog, I'm going to level with you. Can I call you J-Dog? I know you're watching this, James White. This can't happen again. Like, please, for the love of God, be honest with the fact that you are learning from this, and just we can't have another thing like this.
I think that's a great message. And for a split second, I thought you were talking to me. I was like, oh, J-Dog is new, but sure, go for it.
Get him, Dennis.
So I think you're 100%. That's a great way to close, Dennis. I want to pass it on to Ethan now too. Ethan, do you have any thoughts, kind of final thoughts on the bans? Does this shake your confidence at all, Mr. Pro? Throw all Chane cards in the trash.
Look, all I'm excited for is a massive meta shakeup before Nationals. This is like what I live for. Just the deck building challenge, the fact that getting your gauntlets together and testing is going to be just so important in a meta that we know nothing about. And that's just purely exciting to me. Like, eyes on the horizon. I can't wait for Nationals. I hope that there's not just this one deck that top-notch competitive players just all flock towards. I'd love to see them all on a different variety of decks, because there is not going to be a confirmed S-tier deck. There's not going to be enough statistics out there. And I think that'll just be a much more fun event to play in and hopefully watch and get more people invested in the game. Because I don't know if you guys are watching the Calling Live, but there were a lot of new players in that chat. And even they started to jump on the bandwagon of not another Chane. Like, what's going on? There's too much crap here, or stuff going on the screen. And just to see the variety and all heroes back on display potentially for Nationals has just got me so excited. So I'm all good. This is all good for me.
Cool. And then finally, Rooks. I know you were probably the one, like I said, spent the most time behind this deck, really succeeded with it. Do you have any closing thoughts? Kind of, what does this do for your confidence and stuff?
I think something needed to happen. I wish it would have been less. I wish it would have been a more incremental approach. I did unload a lot of my extra cards. I'm still obviously keeping my play sets. I still have a box of Monarch First Edition on the shelf behind me, or I should say a case of Monarch First Edition on the shelf behind me. I'm not fully sold off yet, but it was a tough 2 days. I want to end on a high note, though. I do think that this limited environment is by far the most enjoyable limited environment of any Flesh and Blood set, and it is not close. The amount of deck building decisions, the amount of, I actually get to make choices about my sealed pool rather than count which hero card I have the most of and jam Prism at the end because I didn't get there on the other three. Like, this, as much as people say Briar's too good, I love this limited environment, and I hope that the care and love that they put into constructing this limited environment goes forward into Classic Constructed as well, so we don't have another Duskblade.
Perfect.
Yeah, well said.
Well said. And then let's just close us out. Louie, you got the floor. Anything you want to say to LSS that you don't want to put out there on your channel, or any message you want to give to them? Feel free. You got the floor, man. Close us out.
We said, man, at the end of the day, this can't happen again. Everyone here kind of represents the competitive scene. I fear that LSS doesn't put enough energy in the general loosey-goosey kitchen table scene. And that's been very adamant over the last 5 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever, where we've been focusing on Road to Nationals. I think as a community, we have stopped inviting our friends to Armory events because we're so focused on playtesting our Classic Constructed deck and getting ready for Road to Nationals and qualifying for whatever. And in my opinion, this game needs every single avenue to grow wide and into the world, and more players, the better. The more every single one of you guys talked about, you came from another world, another game, another whatever. I hate to see somebody pull a card that's now banned and now they're not excited about the game. They came to an LGS to play. Yeah. We need the focus needs to be both deep in terms of competitive play, because that's our thing, but it also, we can't forget that there are casual players that don't want to see that, like they just don't want to see that stuff, and it's super important. So I have full belief that we will move forward from this as a community and as a company. That LSS will learn from their stuff. I think they got to hire more people. Not playtesting things is just an excuse of not having the right staff. You gotta hire more people from and that's something we've said on the podcast for a long time. You gotta have more people in the United States to work with LGSs to get the events and stuff going off. And like, you gotta have more people playtesting. If this is going to be the top 4 TCG like we all want it to be, we need more people on the staff so this doesn't happen again. And it can't just be James White and whatever, however many people it is. We gotta have more people. So bring them in for the community. I love that idea. Bring them in from the community. You got a community that loves your game so much. People quit their jobs to do content. People quit their jobs to I know somebody who's actively trying to quit their job right now to go play competitively. That's what they're trying to do. People love this game. Lean into your community. That's the best thing that came from this episode. You guys saying that, not me. Whoever said that.
That was Michael. And that's 100%. We're going to lean into that fire. We're going to end on that high note. I think everyone here agrees. And I want to personally take the time to thank all of you guys. I think there's awesome information here for the rest of the community. I think this is worth a watch. And you guys know, Hometown TCG, we don't really do podcasts. But if we were going to do one, this is a fan-freaking-tastic place to start. So big thank you to all you guys. And I think all you guys know the outro, so I'll let you guys just scream it when I'm done. Until next time, my name is Josh.
And I'm John.
And we will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for hanging out.